I'll recognize myself for the purpose of making an opening statement. I am the subcommittee chairman of the National Security and Border and Foreign Affairs Committee. Good afternoon and welcome to our joint subcommittee hearing on how the Biden administration's immigration policies have impacted border communities and communications across the country. I want to thank my colleague Andy Biggs, who has arranged frequent hearings, or for at least frequent tours of the southern border for congressmen from around the country. And I'd like to thank him for his leadership on this issue and his willingness to join in this hearing. I want to thank my colleagues for making the time to fly out here to learn more about this issue with me. It couldn't be more appropriate that we're here in the Tucson sector because the Border Patrol apprehended over 40,000 illegal immigrants in the month of July alone. That's the highest it's been in 15 years. Even though not all of us are representing southwest border states, this illegal immigration impacts every community in the United States. The Biden administration continues to lean into failed policies that cause a catastrophe on our southwest border. It's a problem that requires oversight. Under this majority, the House Oversight Committee this will be our fifth hearing, the fourth on this subcommittee alone, on border issues. We've conducted 7 transcribed interviews with chief patrol agents from sectors along the southwest border, and we've sent many demands for documents and information to the Department of Homeland Security and other relevant agencies to provide transparency. We intend to understand why the crisis at our southern border is only getting worse, even as more and more taxpayer dollars are committed to the humanitarian and security response. And something I'm reluctant to point out, but will point out, none of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have decided to join us today, despite an open invitation to participate. And I'll point out right now I'm on another special committee dealing with the drug side of this thing, the drug cartel side of this thing. At least we're invited to come down to Arizona later this month. Same thing. We haven't been able to get any Democrats to come down here. When I get around my district again and again, I hear, why can't you guys try to work together? And we just have a complete lack of sense of urgency. And I'll tell you from being down here and talking to so many in the past, you cannot know what's going on the southern border unless you've been here and talked to the people who live it, both law enforcement, ranchers, what have you. Despite President Biden claiming that his administration would bring transparency and truth back to the government to share the truth, even when it's hard to hear, the Biden administration has tried to hide the truth from the American people when it comes to our border security and the crisis they've engineered. By the way, I'd like to thank, we have a few members of the press back there, and I'm really glad to see that because we do need this being covered to alert the American public. Disclosures made in litigation between the Biden administration and Florida and Texas show at least 2 million illegal aliens have been released into the United States under the Biden administration. I am sure that is low. In fiscal year 2023 through June, Customs and Border Protection personnel have encountered 2.3 million inadmissible aliens at the ports of entry and between ports of entry, almost as many encountered in the entire fiscal year 2022. So in other words, with 2 months to go, we've already cleared what we did last year. Additionally, the CPB One smartphone app was created and launched in 2020 during the pandemic to facilitate lawful trade and travel for those with legitimate business before the agency. The Biden administration now uses CPB One app to let hundreds of thousands of inadmissible aliens into the country, overwhelming officers at the points of entry and leaving vulnerabilities in our national security. In other words, what's going on, the Border Patrol that expected and was hired to guard the border has to deal with paperwork at the points of entry instead, which is why you have such big gaps. The Biden administration's propaganda machine calls these unlawful parole programs lawful pathways. Make no mistake, these so-called lawful pathways are anything but lawful and are a complete abuse of limited parole authority provided under the Immigration and Nationality Act statute. When the Biden administration isn't actively breaking our immigration laws, they pretend that everything is fine, repeating the tired rhetoric that they've created a safe, orderly, humane immigration system. That is not true. Look no further than how the Biden administration has mismanaged an influx of unaccompanied alien children, many who have been subject to horrible abuses by unrelated sponsors who traffic them into forced labor to pay off smuggling debts. And by unaccompanied children, children coming across without an adult. That's 8,000 to 10,000 every month across this border. Unbelievable. Earlier this year, I chaired a National Security Subcommittee hearing where the Office of Refugee Resettlement Director testified about their work to assist unaccompanied alien children. It was clear that the Biden administration prioritized speed over safety and failed to properly screen sponsors to assist in temporary care for unaccompanied minors. It was clear that the unaccompanied minors coming into the country face enormous pressure to work illegal, full-time jobs to support either themselves, their families abroad, or to pay off debts to cartels or their sponsor. I want to emphasize, we may or may not hear it today, that a lot of times these people come across, they are obligated by the drug cartels who let them in here to have to pay $8,000 to $20,000 for that trip, which is just unbelievable. It was clear that employees and contractors who raised alarm bells were retaliated against and silenced. Countless children, and I say countless because the administration couldn't keep track of tens of thousands of these children, are now being exploited across our country as a direct result of the chaos at the border. It's vital that the Biden administration continues to take steps to deter illegal immigration and reduce the impact of human trafficking on vulnerable children. Today, we'll explore how the Biden administration's immigration policies have affected our border communities in the nation. Our witnesses today will discuss how the reversal of deterrent-focused illegal immigration policies have had an adverse effect on American security, business, and livelihoods. We will also hear from experts on the big picture issues created by the Biden administration immigration policies and how these decisions have implications for the future of our immigration policy. I'd like to thank everyone who traveled from near and far to get here and to address this issue, which in my opinion is the number one issue in the United States right now. I look forward to your testimonies today. And now I'd like to recognize the chair of the Judiciary Subcommittee,